The marketplace on Station Helix 9 reeked of 1,000 worlds, spices from Andromeda, metals from the outer rim, and the ever-present stench of desperation. Kevin pulled his jacket tighter as he navigated through the crowd of alien traders, trying to ignore the illegal stalls tucked into shadowy corners. That's when he saw her. She sat huddled against a cargo crate, her pale skin almost translucent under the harsh station lights. No hair, no shoes, no identifying markers of any species he recognized. Her eyes, large and dark, tracked the crowd with the wariness of a hunted animal. Kevin had seen many things in his years as a salvage runner, but something about this girl made him stop. She couldn't have been more than 16 by human standards, though who could tell with alien physiology? "Hey," he said softly, crouching a safe distance away. "You okay?" She flinched, pressing herself harder against the crate. Her lips moved, but no sound came out, or perhaps it was in a frequency he couldn't hear. A Valorian merchant nearby sneered. "Move along, human. That one's defective. No species tag, no value. Station authorities will dispose of it by cycle's end." Dispose of it. The words hit Kevin like a punch. He looked at the girl again, saw the trembling in her thin limbs, the hollowness in her cheeks. Without thinking, he stood and approached the merchant. "How much?" The girl didn't speak during the shuttle ride to Kevin's modest habitat on the station's residential ring. She sat rigid in the passenger seat, her strange three-fingered hands clutching the safety harness like it was the only solid thing in the universe. Kevin's quarters were small, a living space, a bedroom, a tiny kitchen, and a bathroom. He watched as she took in everything with those enormous eyes, her head tilting at odd angles as if processing information beyond visual input. "You must be hungry," he said, moving toward the kitchen. She didn't follow, didn't even turn to watch him. She just stood in the center of the room, waiting. He prepared a simple meal, protein paste and synthesized vegetables, universal enough that most carbon-based species could digest it. When he set the plate before her, she stared at it for a long moment before tentatively reaching out. Her hands shook as she brought the food to her mouth. She ate like someone who hadn't seen a meal in weeks, probably hadn't. "I'm Kevin," he said, pointing to himself. "Kevin." She looked at him but said nothing. He wondered if she even could speak, or if whatever she'd endured had stolen that from her too. 3 days passed in careful routine. Kevin went about his salvage work while she remained in the habitat, never touching anything, never making a sound. She accepted food and water but showed no curiosity about her surroundings. It was as if she'd learned that curiosity led to pain. On the 4th day, Kevin decided enough was enough. "Look," he said gently, "I know you've been through something terrible. I don't know what, and you don't have to tell me. But you're safe here. You can clean up, rest properly. The bathroom's right there," he pointed. She followed his gesture but didn't move. He sighed. "I'll show you." He led her to the bathroom and turned on the shower, adjusting the temperature. "Water for washing. You understand?" For the first time, something changed in her expression. Not quite recognition, but something close. She moved toward the shower stall, one hesitant step at a time, and then stopped at the threshold. Her whole body began to shake. "It's okay," Kevin assured her. "It's just water. It won't hurt you." She reached out a trembling hand, letting the spray hit her palm. The moment the water touched her skin, she gasped, a sound so human it startled him. And then, she stepped fully under the stream. Kevin turned to give her privacy, but her cry stopped him cold. Not a cry of pain, a cry of something breaking loose, something that had been buried so deep it had calcified into silence. She stood under the water, her hairless head tilted back, and she wept. Great shuddering sobs that shook her entire frame. Her hands came up to touch her face, her arms, her body, as if rediscovering that she existed, that she was still real. Kevin's throat tightened. He'd seen hardened soldiers break down. He'd seen civilizations fall. But this raw, primal release of trauma hit differently. He waited outside the bathroom door until the water stopped. When she emerged, wrapped in a towel he'd left for her, her eyes were red but clearer somehow. She looked at him, really looked at him for the first time. "Daisy," she whispered, her voice rough and uncertain, as if she hadn't used it in so long she'd forgotten how. My name, Daisy." Kevin felt something twist in his chest. "Daisy," he repeated softly. "That's a beautiful name." She nodded, and the smallest, most fragile smile touched her lips. "Human," she said, the word heavy with meaning. I'm Human. The pieces fell into place with horrible clarity. A human girl stripped of everything, hair, shoes, identity, sold into some nightmare he couldn't fathom. Modified, perhaps, or tortured into something unrecognizable, left to die on a station where no one cared about one more piece of disposable flesh. But she'd survived. And now she stood here, remembering her name, remembering her species. Yeah, Kevin said, his voice rough with emotion. You're human. And so am I. Which means you're not alone anymore, Daisy. Not ever again. She took a shaky breath, and for the first time since he'd found her, she stepped forward, not away. She moved toward him, hesitant but determined, and when she was close enough, she did something that shattered the last of his composure. She reached out and took his hand. Her grip was weak, but it was there. A connection, a trust, a declaration that she was still capable of both. Thank you, Daisy whispered. Kevin squeezed her hand gently. Welcome home. In the days that followed, Daisy began to heal. Her hair started growing back in soft, dark patches. She learned to smile again, then to laugh, a sound like sunlight breaking through storm clouds. She started asking questions about the station, about Earth, about the stars beyond the viewport. And Kevin learned that humanity's greatest strength wasn't in their weapons or their ships or their stubbornness in the face of impossible odds. It was in their capacity to recognize suffering, to extend a hand when it would have been easier to look away, and to remind one lost soul that they still mattered. Because in a cold, vast universe filled with countless species and infinite cruelty, sometimes the most powerful act of all was simply being human, and choosing to see the humanity in another. Daisy had forgotten she was human, but Kevin helped her remember. And in doing so, he reminded himself what humanity truly meant.